A man with very low emotional intelligence sent me this video as proof that women are emotionally incompetent.
Women have no emotional intelligence.
That's how bad ideas spread. That's how stereotypes get anchored in people's heads. If you look at the comments under the original video, you'll see hundreds of people praising this message and repeating the same stereotypes. That's partly why male-female discourse gets poisonous. And that's why some experts make people worse rather than better. So in this video, I'm going to dismantle the irrational claim this coach makes about women, emotions, and emotional intelligence. Let's hear her out.
Falseness we live in as women is believing that we have high emotional intelligence.
The problem with this statement is that not all women believe, think, and act alike. The word women is plural. It refers to millions of different individuals, and individuals don't all think the same way about themselves. Some women believe they have high emotional intelligence, and some of them are absolutely right. But others believe they have high emotional intelligence when in reality they don't. And some women believe they don't have high emotional intelligence, and some of them are right, and others are underestimating themselves. In other words, there are many different possibilities, and the same goes for men. It makes no sense to make sweeping psychological claims about billions of people at once. And just to be clear, I'm not defending women here. Most people have relatively low emotional intelligence. Most women have low emotional intelligence. Most men have low emotional intelligence. So this is not a male-female issue. It's a human issue. One of the most influential psychotherapists of all time, Albert Ellis, made this point clearly by saying that there is no evidence, zero, none evidence, that men are more rational than women. In his words, both sexes are equally irrational. And if you look in the mirror and around you, you'll probably have to agree with him. And the fact that she keeps repeating we women as if she represents all women is another problem. She doesn't represent all women. She is expressing her own view of women, a view that is not only inaccurate, but also emotionally unintelligent. Now let's hear her next statement.
And setting the record straight, women have no emotional intelligence.
Let's stop right there and really set the record straight, because she just made a massive overgeneralization. Saying that women have no emotional intelligence means the women have zero emotional intelligence, none. That claim simply cannot be taken seriously, not in common sense and not in psychology. You cannot take half of human population and declare that they completely lack a psychological ability, especially an ability as complex as emotional intelligence. Ironically, making sweeping stereotypes like that is exactly the kind of thinking that emotionally intelligent people avoid, because they know it's both inaccurate and harmful. Now, this woman is a coach, so I assume she knows all this very well, which raises an interesting question. Why is she making a statement like this? I'll come back to that at the end of the video. Let's listen to her next three statements. She repeats the same argument that being emotional means having low emotional intelligence.
The reason that as women we want to believe we have emotional intelligence is because we are emotional. Because we are emotional. As women, we want to think we have high emotional intelligence. But the truth is the fact that we are highly emotional is actually the biggest indicator that we have very low emotional intelligence.
The problem is she never explains what she means by being emotional, or highly emotional? Without a definition, we're left guessing. Does she mean reacting strongly, or reacting inappropriately, or simply having emotion? If it means reacting with strong emotion, that still doesn't tell us whether reaction is intelligent or not, because that depends on context. Someone reacting strongly to something very important may be responding in a completely appropriate and intelligent way. Someone reacting with the same intensity to something trivial may not. So emotional intelligence is not about whether emotions are shown or how strong they are. It's about whether it fits the situation and the relationship. Dictionaries define word emotional as simply expressing or experiencing feelings, sometimes strongly. None of them define it as lacking emotional intelligence. Cambridge Dictionary, for example, defines emotional as being connected with or showing feelings. That's a normal human condition. Being highly emotional then would mean being strongly connected to your feelings. That still doesn't equate to low emotional intelligence. The problem is that in everyday speech, people often use being emotional loosely to mean overreacting or being too sensitive. So the most reasonable interpretation of her phrase, being highly emotional, is that she means consistently overreacting. But we can't rely on vague colloquial meanings here. We need to be precise, because even that formulation, consistently overreacting, has its problems. For example, a person can generally have high emotional intelligence and still occasionally react poorly. And someone with generally low emotional intelligence can sometimes react wisely in an important situation. In other words, emotional intelligence is about understanding them and handling them intelligently. Now, some people might say, come on, Gordon, you're splitting hairs. We all know what she means. But this is not hair splitting. She started by massively exaggerating and overgeneralizing. And the distinctions I just mentioned are exactly what determines whether our understanding of emotions is realistic or not. Emotional intelligence is precisely about understanding those distinctions. Ignore those distinctions, and all you're left with are slogans. Well, what if I'm splitting hairs? Emotional intelligence is about recognizing the complexities of our inner and outer worlds. The massive exaggerations this coach just made are easy and they grab attention, but they're intellectually sloppy and harmful. Because when you overgeneralize, you eliminate nuance. When you eliminate nuance, you eliminate understanding. Eliminate understanding, you eliminate emotional intelligence. Eliminate emotional intelligence, and you further distort the already murky male-female discourse. So precision matters in psychology, and that's exactly what's missing in her next statement.
Being emotional is having no control over our emotional state, which is low emotional intelligence. Hi.
She introduces the idea of controlling emotions. Point is correct. If your emotions are running you, if you have no control over them, that is indeed a sign of low emotional intelligence. That said, I still dislike her framing of being emotional, but I've already covered that part. So let me make additional 2 points. First, she ignores the social dimension of this issue. In many cultures, women are conditioned to express emotions openly. Men, on the other hand, are often conditioned to suppress them. So accusing women of being emotional as if that proves low emotional intelligence is absurd. And often expressing emotions is the healthy and constructive thing to do. Yes, sometimes reacting emotionally is inappropriate. As I said earlier, whether an emotional reaction is intelligent depends on the context. So the claim that being emotional is a sign of low emotional intelligence simply doesn't make sense. And the second point is that not all emotions need to be controlled or managed. Some emotions are healthy. They guide us to do the right thing. It is the unhealthy emotions that contribute to us sabotaging ourselves. Those are the emotions we need or we better manage or learn how to manage. And the ability to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy emotions is actually one of the cornerstones of emotional intelligence. Now, let's listen to how she defines emotional intelligence, and then we'll look at what it actually entails.
Emotional intelligence is the ability to be pragmatic, to see things realistically, and to make choices and respond to life not from an emotional place. It's the ability to be in control of our emotional state and operate in life from that place.
At first glance, part of her uh, definition might seem reasonable. She talks about being pragmatic and seeing things realistically. But even that really is not a definition of emotional intelligence. Those are possible results of emotional intelligence, not the definition of it. But the real problems come from the part of her definition that emotionally intelligent people make decisions not from an emotional place. That is simply incorrect. In fact, it is neither realistic nor psychologically accurate. Human beings almost always make important decisions with emotions involved. We like something, that's why we buy it. We like someone, that's why we become friends or choose them as partners. We dislike something, we avoid it. Emotions are part of how humans evaluate the world. The real distinction is healthy emotion versus unhealthy emotion. When decisions come from healthy emotions, they can guide us toward good choices. When decisions come from unhealthy emotions, they can lead us to poor decisions. That distinction between healthy and unhealthy emotions is one of the foundations of emotional intelligence. Now compare that to her definition.
High emotional intelligence is the ability to be pragmatic, to see things realistically, and to make choices and respond to life not from an emotional place. It's the ability to be in control of our emotional state and operate in life from that place.
Emotional intelligence is as the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, to recognize them in ourselves and in others, and to use that information, that emotional information, to guide our thinking and behavior. That is a very different concept from what she just described. Emotional intelligence is not about understanding their underlying messages, adjusting them when they're unhealthy, and using them as guidance when they are healthy. When people ignore these nuances, they spread confusion about emotional intelligence. Add sweeping generalizations about women and men on top of that, and you'll pour fuel on an already tense, if not toxic, male-female discourse. And that is exactly why I delivered this video from an emotional space. This topic matters. Its importance warrants strong energy and high intensity. And that brings me back to the earlier question. Why would a woman coach say something so obviously false as women have no emotional intelligence? I don't know what her intention was. Perhaps she wanted to provoke women into self-reflection, to challenge the idea that they are the more emotionally intelligent partner. But statements like these often have consequences. First, they can create confusion and self-doubt where there weren't any to begin with. Second, once that doubt creeps in, the person making the claim can easily step in as authority who will explain things to you. So the message becomes, you women are emotionally incompetent, but luckily, I will show you and I will teach you. Third, and as I mentioned earlier, a man with very low emotional intelligence sent me this video as proof that he was right, that he had been right all along, that women are emotionally unintelligent, that reacting emotionally is always a sign of low emotional intelligence. So whatever this coach's intention may have been, that dynamic is not empowerment, because messages like this undermine. They undermine women, they undermine men, and they undermine relationships. They distort an already distorted male-female discourse, which is exactly why precision in this topic matters so much. Because when sloppy ideas about emotional intelligence spread, they don't just confuse people, they damage how men and women understand each other. So whenever someone tells you that you have zero this or none of that, pay attention. Empowerment does not begin with self-doubt. It begins with clarity. And that's exactly what I hope this video has given you. Clarity.